know that in this Hollywood, a big guy box, being knocked it up with stones and rocks. Diggy do, hey, diggy, diggy, diggy. Yeah, as I walked on past the grave, I knew I'd lie. Well, in this very spot, oh, when I die. Diggy do, hey, diggy, diggy, diggy do. Diggy, diggy do, diggy, 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 diggy do. Hey, diggy do, diggy do. Diggy, diggy do, diggy, 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 diggy do. Hey, die. Diggy, 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 die. Hey, die.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you all today to the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber's annual national convention. We've had an unusual year, to say the least, but the ICBC managed to rise above the challenges by transitioning almost overnight into a virtual mode. It took us some time to get used to the new normal, but we did it. With the support of our president, board of directors, and the dedicated efforts of an awesome team, we've organized over 40 sessions with more than 6,000 attendees over the last few months. We've had 170 speakers on key economic areas for collaboration. We published reports on important sectors like healthcare and agri-tech, and introduced new initiatives such as the Agri-Tech Summit and Brand India outreach programs. In short, we took on the very important task of ensuring that people and businesses stay connected. We kept up communication between all stakeholders in the India-Canada Economic Corridor with a message to look forward to new opportunities with renewed strength and confidence. And that is what this convention is all about. New collaborations, new opportunities, new markets. And we are honored to have esteemed leaders from both the countries to share their vision of 2021. I'm very excited to announce that Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, will be delivering the keynote address. Premier, we are indeed honored by your presence here today. We are privileged to have with us Ontario Minister Vic Fedeli, a great friend and supporter of the Chamber, High Commissioners Nadir Patel and Ajay Bisaria of Canada and India respectively, industry leaders Mr. Marc-André Blanchard, Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, Dr. Swati Piramal, and we will be introducing them formally as we go along. Thank you all for being here with us today. I would like to acknowledge Ms. Anita George, EVP and Deputy Head, CDPQ Global, and President of ICBC, for her leadership to the Chamber and all that she has achieved at CDPQ. We are grateful for the support from Air Canada to partner with us in this event. Air Canada has continued to foster people-to-people linkages at this crucial time, and this has been possible due to its visionary leadership. Ms. Margaret Skinner, Director Sales, EMEAI, Air Canada, who will be speaking a little later, has personally attended our past conventions and has been closely associated with the activities of the Chamber. And it is my pleasure to welcome her this evening. As also Mr. Arun Pandya, who's been a true ambassador for Air Canada, many of us renaming him Mr. Air Canada. I now take this opportunity to invite His Excellency Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada. High Commissioner Bisaria's foreign policy and commerce expertise has been instrumental during these challenging times. Over to you, Mr. Bisaria, for your remarks.
Good evening and good morning. Good to see everyone. Wonderful to be here at this very, very special moment. I want to start by wishing and congratulating the India-Canada Business Chamber on going ahead with this virtual conference and e-convention in these difficult times. Happily, this also coincides with Ontario's virtual mission to India. And I'm delighted that we have with us Premier Doug Ford and Minister Vic Fedeli, among others. So it's great to see all of you. I'm also delighted that we have such a wonderful array of guests, and we have my counterpart, Nadir Patel. Both of us coordinate very closely, particularly on the economic uh, corridor between India and Canada, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm not going to take too much time in my remarks, but I would just make 2 or 3 quick points about where we stand at this point of time. The first is, I think we are leaving behind the worst of the twin crises that we are living through in these times, which is the public health crisis and the economic crisis. We are moving cautiously into positive territory. And the GDP numbers are showing a contraction, but less of a contraction now. And we are hoping that we are on course for a 2021 V-shaped recovery, which the numbers seem to be pointing out. There is some evidence in September and October of the green shoots of recovery being seen. So this is, I think, the first positive. Also, on the pandemic front, we are hoping that the numbers are coming down. We are hoping to be flattening the curve in India, and we are hoping that we move to positive territory, particularly starting early next year. In terms of the public health crisis, we know that the conversation is now shifting towards the vaccine, towards the solutions, and we hope the numbers taper out and 2021 rolls out with the vaccines that India has planned. India, of course, is not just the pharmacy of the world, it is also positioning itself to be the vaccine maker of the world. And we hope the scaling up of the vaccine, wherever it is developed and approved, will be something that India's capacity for vaccine production will be helpful in. In terms of the economic crisis, we know the recovery numbers are getting better, and we hope that the fiscal year 21-22 lives up to the predictions of a positive growth rate. But at this point of time, what India is looking for is normalcy in trade, in travel, in mobility. And you've seen that India has negotiated more than 20 air bubble agreements, including with Canada. With Canada, we are in the happy situation, and I know that Air Canada is here. They would share that feeling that we have more flights per week than we ever did before. We have about 9 flights a week from Toronto alone and about 3 flights from Vancouver. So we are moving towards a near normalcy situation. We hope that the visa situation in the new year stabilizes and that we actually have mobility. We have, of course, opened up business visas to allow businessmen to go about their essential jobs. I think in terms of the recovery, India and Canada have had similar responses of up to 10% of the GDP in terms of stimulus package. You've seen that in India, we moved towards our stimulus package 3.0. It came in May, it came in October, and now in November. And all these are aimed at supporting investment, supporting employment. And we have a situation now of identifying several sectors across the Indian economy, which we are calling the champion sectors, and rolling out production-linked incentives. So the Indian stimulus package has had the unique component of coming embedded with next-gen, deep-seated economic reforms. Apart from the fiscal and monetary stimulus, we are looking at across-the-board reforms in land, labor, in laws, in agriculture, in health, and real estate, in education. So particular focus has been on MSME, and I think that is what is giving us the pointers to where we need to move in the future. We are also strongly accelerating towards a digital future we now have about 400 million bank accounts and Aadhaar identities. So we are confident and hopeful of moving towards a good space in terms of our economic recovery in the next year. On the India-Canada economic corridor, I've been saying that it's the headline story of the India-Canada strategic partnership, and particularly the huge increase in portfolio investment from $5 billion to $50 billion over the last 5 years. And I think that is signifying Canada's faith in India's long-term and medium-term prospects. We already have engagement of over $100 billion if you put together trade, investment, remittances, and the tourism spend. And we are confident that as the Indian economy grows and we move towards our ambitions of getting to a $5 trillion economy and a $10 trillion economy in the next 15 years, we would have a commensurate doubling and quadrupling of this engagement. So this is a very strong economic partnership. And I want to end with the hope that both our countries and both our economies drive the V-shaped recovery that we hope will come in 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the very positive remarks. And now I would like to request and welcome His Excellency Nadir Patel, High Commissioner for Canada to India. Canada-India trade and investments have seen tremendous growth in his tenure. Welcome, His Excellency Nadir Patel. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nadira, and thank you for being such a terrific CEO for the Chamber. Let me begin by acknowledging my counterpart, His Excellency Ajay Bisaria. Thank you for those remarks, everything of which, of course, I would agree with and further emphasize or echo. I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford, and Minister Fedele. Really great to have you participate in this annual convention, as well as all of our distinguished participants and guests. Let me just add a little bit to what High Commissioner Bisaria said, just in terms of some opening comments here. I'll say this, over the last 5-6 years, every year we've seen record growth across every single metric you can measure in terms of Canada-India, commercial relations and related. And pre-pandemic, you can point to pretty much any stat and you'll see it hit record numbers. 2019, our two-way trade hit 11 billion in goods, another 3 billion in services. Number of students hit 223,000 from what was about 34,000 5 years ago from India and Canada. Double-digit growth in tourism. Every metric across the board continued to show record growth. The pandemic has slowed that down, but we just took a look at some of the numbers end of September year-to-date numbers, and while there is contraction in the two-way trade numbers, it's not dramatic relative to the shock that both Canada and India and other countries around the world have gone through. And that tells us something. It tells us that the momentum of those several years continues. And as we approach the end of the year, we're still seeing many new examples of new investments both ways, new contracts, trade agreements, and whatnot happening. So we remain very optimistic that once we get through the other side of the pandemic, there'll certainly be an ongoing momentum in terms of that growth story. Let me just share a few areas that we are focused on right now. We think that despite how difficult, challenging, and devastating the pandemic has been, it has forced a little bit of an opportunity for a rethink of how to take this relationship to the next phase of 5-year growth and perhaps get to even greater heights than where we've come from over the last 5 years. We are strategizing around looking at new sectors of cooperation. High Commissioner Bisaria talked about, for example, COVID-19 cooperation, vaccines, but that extends to the entire a healthcare ecosystem, as an example. There are other areas that we're looking at diversifying into new sectors. And I think Ontario, for example, plays into a number of those, technology and innovation being one of those marquee areas where we see a lot of future growth potential. The second thing that we're doing is we're thinking more than we have ever before, short to medium term, and not just long term. You know, the goal with India has always been long term, and that won't stop. You've got to have a long term outlook on doing business here and investing and whatnot. But I think given the pandemic and trying to navigate the next year or so, it's entirely reasonable to see how can we support companies, Canadian and Indian, to navigate through the next several months and get to the other side in a way that not only have they survived, but they'll come out thriving again on the other end. So we're working at how do we support companies, what tools can we provide in the interim, how do we adapt to the way we do business? And I think doing this virtually is another example of that. And then the third thing is partners. And I wanted to sort of acknowledge ICBC and other chambers of commerce in India, in Canada, that are focused on this corridor. What's interesting is what the pandemic has brought is, and I would think that High Commissioner Bisaria would agree with me, we have had so many opportunities through webinars and virtual means to engage with partners through conferences, topical webinars, sessions like this. Normally in a given year, High Commissioner Bisaria and I would maybe see each other twice a year, perhaps either in Canada or here at an event. We've probably done about 100 webinars over the last several months. The point being, a lot of organizations are stepping up to really build on this momentum. And those partners help amplify the work that we're trying to do to complement support for businesses. So this convention is extremely critical in that sort of framework going forward. Let me close on two specific themes that I just wanted to touch on briefly because they're very relevant to today's discussion. One is our engagement with provinces in Canada and states here in India. Has always been top of mind, but I think the last several months has brought that to the forefront more than ever before. So we're very heartened to see Premier Ford and Minister Fedeli and your teams on this trade mission for Ontario, the first one that I'm participating in virtually along these lines. And you know, it's really important for us to showcase the impact and the strength that the provinces bring to the table in terms of investment promotion, economic development, supporting SMEs, and so we'll hear more from Minister Fedeli on that in just a minute. But I think that support that we provide for provinces, I think, is something that we really wanted to highlight. We think you know, any investment, any deal for an Ontario company is good for Canada. Any state, any province in Canada that benefits, Canada will benefit. Similarly, here on the Indian side, we're engaging a lot more at the state and municipal level as well. Our relationship with the central government will always be top priority. But engagement directly at the state level, looking at the autonomy and the flexibility that states bring to attract business, to support investment, to facilitate an environment that will make things easier for companies to thrive, I think is really important. So we'll continue that engagement as well. And then finally, High Commissioner Bisaria talked about investment, and we'll hear a little bit later from some of our Canadian and Indian investors. And I think I just wanted to highlight that this is a really important element of our story. You know, from what was $4.5 billion in two-way investment when, you know, 5 years ago, whatever it was, to well over 50. This is a story that needs to be leveraged more. And we're very heartened to see that the Indian government has really appreciated that level of investment. There was a roundtable with Prime Minister Modi not too long ago with foreign investors, including a number of Canadian investors. And on the Canadian side, we've really increased our efforts to step up support for Indian investors in Canada, to expand the presence of Indian companies, and to showcase how we can continue to demonstrate Canada as a really great place to invest, grow your investments, and look to the future. So we're looking forward to hearing from some of the panelists today. Let me just once again congratulate ICBC on yet another successful convention. Again, I look forward to hearing from our provincial minister and the premier as well. And you know, if if we are able to come out of this pandemic as planned in the coming months, I'm very confident that this momentum of record growth across all metrics will continue well into the future, not only bilaterally Canada, India, but also for respective provinces that are directly engaged here as well. Thank you very much, and back to you, Nadira.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your remarks and for keeping the momentum between India and Canada going. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to welcome Honorable Doug Ford, the 26th Premier of Ontario, for his keynote address. The Premier is a dedicated community leader and successful businessman, having operated his business in Canada and in the US. Premier Ford and his family have dedicated their life to community service. His father served as an MPP, and his brother, Rob Ford, was the mayor of Toronto. This dedication to public service has coined the region of Etobicoke, Ontario, Ford Nation. Since taking office, Premier Ford has been a strong advocate for trade and commerce between Ontario and India. I had the honor of meeting him in 2019, wherein I found him dynamic, forward-thinking, full of energy and positivity, all traits that are much needed today. Honorable Premier, I welcome you for your address now. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and it's a real honor to be here with all of you today. And for those of you joining from Canada, good morning. And for those joining from India, good evening. The Indo-Canadian Business Chamber does a terrific job every single year putting on this convention, so congratulations. And even though this year's convention looks a little different, they've brought together an A-list of speakers and participants. So thank you, Nadira, and of course, Shavik and Anita, and the entire team at ICBC for putting together another incredible event. High Commissioner of India, it's always great to hear from you, and thank you, Air Canada, for bringing us all virtually together. My friends, I have some exciting news to share with you today. Ontario has launched a virtual mission to India to promote opportunities for both Ontario and Indian businesses to invest here, our highly diversified province, and to find new markets and customers to help them grow. Our all-star Economic Development Minister, Vic Fideli, will be leading this mission with a delegation of 13 Ontario tech companies to the India Mobile Congress, the largest digital and technology forum in India and South Asia. He'll have more details to share with you in a moment, but I want to be clear. During these unprecedented times, we need to stick together. We need to rely on the long-standing friendships that have served us well throughout history. When this crisis is over, we will get our economy roaring once again. Make no mistake, Ontario will come back with a vengeance. We've done it before. We created over 300,000 new jobs in a span of a couple years before this pandemic. And my friends, I'll tell you, we'll do it again. And we will get it done with the help of a great economic partner like India. Ontario is a manufacturing powerhouse and home to Silicon Valley North. India is home to world-class tech companies and cutting-edge advanced manufacturing. My friends, just think what we can do. Think about how much we'll be able to accelerate our mutual recovery when these two powerhouses work together. Ontario and India conduct over $3 billion in two-way trade every single year. And it's time to move the needle on that number. We want to be India's largest trading partner in all of Asia. Our trade ties are a solid foundation on which we can build a strong long-term recovery for both our jurisdictions. And as Premier, I'm excited to say Ontario is open for business. We're making Ontario a great place to invest, to grow a business, and to create jobs. In our recent 2020 Ontario budget, We're reducing electricity prices from industrial and commercial power users, saving them up to 14 to 16% in 2021. We're providing property tax relief to businesses by lowering the business education tax. This will benefit over 200,000 employers, or 94% of all business properties in Ontario. We're also proposing to make permanent the employer health tax exemption increase to $1 million. This relief will benefit 57,000 employers, ensuring 90% of employers would pay no employer health tax at all. Whether you're a tech startup or an auto parts company, this is a huge announcement for your businesses. We've also set up a new agency. It's called Invest Ontario, to help investors and businesses explore new and innovative opportunities right here in our great province of Ontario. This new agency will drive greater economic growth, help homegrown businesses expand to new markets, and attract investment from around the world. Invest Ontario has a clear mandate to help businesses get the development and planning expertise they need to thrive and grow and prosper. Couple this with all the pro-job actions we've taken to date, providing accelerated capital cost write-offs, saving businesses $3.8 billion over 6 years, saving businesses $330 million to date by cutting red tape, as well as implementing our 10-year auto strategy to strengthen our leadership position in North America. My friends, these initiatives will help businesses in Ontario grow and thrive. Ontario's tax rate is now lower than our US partners. We've lowered Ontario's marginal effective tax rate to 12.6%. That's 5.8 points lower than the US average of 18.4%. And over the last few months, we've attracted over $5 billion in auto sector investments to our province. That's a $5 billion for Ford to build a new electric vehicle battery manufacturing hub at their Oakville plant, or for GM to start building pickup trucks again in Oshawa, and for Fiat Chrysler to get electrical vehicles rolling off the line in Windsor. We have companies like Amazon and Walmart building brand new distribution centers here. We have Roche adding 500 jobs to life sciences sector. We have 3M manufacturing N95 respirators right here in Brockville. And we have India tech companies like VVDN Technologies setting up shop in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, our tech hub. It's incredible, and we're going to keep it going. We look forward to the day when we bring companies like Mahindra or Tata Motors, because we have some of the best and the brightest minds anywhere in the world right here in Ontario. We have some of the lowest business costs anywhere, and we also count ourselves lucky to have democratic allies like our friend and partner India. My friends, let's keep the conversation going. Together, we can build a strong and prosperous future for the people of Ontario and the people of India. Let's build a partnership, the likes of which these countries, any of our countries, have ever seen before. We will get the economy booming once again. So thank you, and God bless you and everyone in our great country of India. Thank you.
Margaret, please unmute yourself.
Just a bit of a problem with unmuting there. Sorry about that. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to formally thank Honourable Premier Ford for his wonderful address, really underlying the significance of integral alliances, the Premier has been very dynamic in his role towards strengthening the India-Ontario trade and commerce. Premier, we thank you for your time and your valuable insights. This year, even though the pandemic has caused severe disruption, Air Canada and the Chamber have been very proactive, and we look forward to a positive 2021. I would like to congratulate the Chamber for being active in keeping the trade and investment momentum going and consistently forging new partnerships. Air Canada has been extremely active and online in India since the 18th of August with direct flights to Toronto and Vancouver. The operation continues, and we already see corporate traffic moving to Canada from India. Air Canada is keeping you safe with its strict Clean Care Plus protocol. And we've also recently launched a new frequent flyer program in Aeroplan, which is innovative with many unique selling points. We really look forward to great engagement with ICBC and look forward to the LeaderSpeak series. Finally, I would really just like to say we look forward to working with all of you as we continue to develop business together. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. We are proud to be associated with Air Canada and assure you of our wholehearted commitment to this relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have a special discussion between Honorable Minister Fedeli and Mr. Vikram Kirloskar. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Minister Vic Fedeli, Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and Chair of Cabinet. Honorable Victor Fedeli is a lifelong entrepreneur, successful business person, and philanthropist. His bio says that his trademark are his yellow ties, which he's often seen in. But I would say his trademark is his smile, for I have never seen him without one. Welcome, Minister Fedeli. Mr. Kirloskar, your name has been synonymous with the automobile industry in India. Mr. Vikram Kirloskar is the Vice Chairman of Toyota Kirloskar Motors and Chairman and Managing Director of Kirloskar System Limited and immediate past President of CII in India. He is responsible for partnering with the Toyota Group for manufacturing of Toyota cars and setting up joint venture Toyota Kirloskar Motors and various automotive component manufacturing units in India. He is a thought leader and has vast experience in the manufacturing sector and the automotive industry. He is currently engaged with various industry associations supporting the government for promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat. Minister, Ontario is the hub for the automotive industry, and we look forward to a great conversation between the both of you on your perspectives on pressing economic challenges and opportunities in this and in other sectors in this new times. So over to you, Mr. Kirloskar and Minister Vic Fedeli, and maybe I can kick off the session by setting the first question to you, to both of you, in fact. So let us start. Looking ahead to 2021, what is your vision for how Ontario and India can work together for a mutual economic benefit and recovery? Over to you, Minister Vic Fedeli, and then we will have Mr. Kirloskar, validating your remarks.
Well, thank you very, very much, Nadira, and thank you to the ICBC for hosting this remarkable symposium today and allowing our Ontario virtual mission to India to be a part of this. We were supposed to be in India again right this moment with you, but sadly we are still under our pandemic rules. And so we are doing this virtually, and we're very, very pleased to be able to do this. Now, look, it's more important, I think, now than ever before that we have to explore new partnership opportunities to increase trade and investment. We can talk about ICT and AI if you'd like, but because Vikram is right across from me here, I think I want to talk auto, if you don't mind, Vikram. We're very proud. You heard Premier Ford a few moments ago talking about what we call our driving prosperity. It's our 10-year plan. people should realize that Ontario is the second largest manufacturers of auto in all of North America, behind Michigan. We make more cars here than the UK. We make more cars here than Italy. When you see Toyota last year winning yet again the JD Power Award, their Platinum Award, this is the best automotive plant in the world is located here in Ontario, and it's a Toyota plant. And which is no surprise that Toyota has also announced some time ago now that the Lexus NX will be manufactured at that plant. And our plant here in Cambridge is the first Lexus that was produced outside of Japan. And that really says something for the quality of our Ontario production. So when you talk about what can be done, think about the fact now that we've got a NAFTA 2.0, a US, Mexico, Canada trade deal. This has new opportunities. It has new rules of origin for parts manufacturing. So they're going to increase the amount of parts that need to be made in North America from 62.5% to 70%. We see a huge opportunity for companies from India to come here, locate here, and make parts. There's great opportunities in that sector. Think about also the recent news, Vikram. Ford, as you heard Premier Ford say, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, in 30 days, they announced $5 billion of investment in the auto sector. Ford is going to make Ontario their electric vehicle hub, global hub. So this opens up other opportunities for India in terms of the expertise. We want to make batteries here. We have connected and autonomous vehicles where all of the companies are doing research here because of our expertise in AI and IT. So I'll stop there for a moment, but just to whet your appetite, I think there's great opportunities for, as Premier Ford said, for India and Ontario to collaborate on mutually beneficial programs.
Thank you very much, Minister. It's an honor to be here with you and such an automobile enthusiast and a Toyota advertisement. Thank you. You're right. Actually, they chose Cambridge, Ontario as one of the best plants, and that's why the first Lexus was outside Japan was built there. We've also just started assembling Lexus, and I hope in the future we have at least skill exchange between the two plants to understand how we can do things better, the way they've done that in Ontario over the years. India has a pretty large automobile industry as well. It's spread in 3 different areas around Delhi, around Pune and in the western side, and in the southern side around Bangalore and Chennai, and a very, very strong component industry. I think component export is also very large, $25–30 billion of component export going up around the world. And it's a very strong component industry because they're also developing parts. It's not just a copy to print or something like that. It's also developing parts. So I think long term, there will be more and more relationship between the auto industry. I think it'll be more in the nature of partnerships rather than trade, perhaps production partnerships, perhaps market partnerships, perhaps development partnerships, design partnerships. I think that will certainly go ahead. I do see Canadian companies here, and we look forward to doing that in a larger way. But let me get back to one topic, because I was president of CII when the pandemic hit. And I was involved in a lot of the meetings with the government on what do we do, how do we close down? How do we restart industry after some time? But how do we really close down? What happens to industry, and what are the kind of programs the government has to roll out in terms of supporting SMEs, supporting farmers, supporting, so many different groups that were there. We from CI, we took a stand is that first support the poorest people or the people who are struggling the most That's what we told government. Then you come to the SMEs and the large industry. To a large extent, you don't have to do too much. And that's generally what they have done. But we had a strong shutdown compared to most of the Western world. And April, May, June was pretty much a washout for all of industry. And things have started moving well after June. From July people started picking up production, August, September. And now the numbers are in the auto industry are better than the same time last year. Whether it's production or retail or wholesale numbers, which is great. And I think we are heading for a very good recovery. There's been good guidance. But in this whole scenario, and I think it's the same in, perhaps you can tell what's happened in Canada. I think our way of working has completely changed. It's not just work from home. I think there's a level of overhead which has been cut in Indian companies. And why we are seeing the stock market go up a lot is that the margins in a lot of good companies have really increased because they have really changed their method of doing business, method of manufacturing to a much more efficient and more productive level. Perhaps when people are staying at home, you realize what you really need and what you really don't need. Typical lean manufacturing or lean business methods. And I think that will make companies very competitive, Indian companies, whatever I've seen around, especially in manufacturing, very competitive as we go ahead. But it's also going to have some social problems in the sense we don't need so many people immediately. As the economy grows, of course, they will get absorbed. I don't know what kind of stuff you're having in Canada. What is the situation in Canada? I'm sure companies have become more innovative, more productive with a different kind of work.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, because we've seen a lot of changes. But here's something that's really unique, Vikram. This is something that one of the statistics that came recently. So we, like everybody, had a lot of lockdowns and shutdowns, and we lost, sadly, 1.1 million jobs back in March and April. But we've recovered almost 900,000 of those jobs since the summer. Last month, October, we saw an increase of 30,600 jobs. But what was most fascinating out of all of these numbers, this morning, 11,600 more men and women went to a job in manufacturing than in pre-COVID. We have more manufacturing jobs this morning than we did in March. And that is really an interesting piece of the recovery. We are seeing certain areas, hospitality, tourism, of course. The minister there would tell you they were the first hit, the hardest hit, will be the slowest to recover. But we put just recently 181 million, everything I'm saying is in Canadian dollars, $181 million into training programs to take those that were most affected by COVID and retrain them for skilled trades or for the jobs that we have most in demand. So this is what's so fascinating about what's happening, because as Premier Ford mentioned, we've taken about $7 billion, if you add all the things he talked about, we've taken $7 billion out of the cost of doing business since we were elected in June of 2018. $7 billion every year now lower. And that's why you see Ford and Fiat Chrysler and General Motors making these investments. We're now no longer a high cost jurisdiction. All of that together in February, just pre-COVID, we had 250,000 unfilled jobs in Ontario. That because manufacturers were flocking to Ontario because we were open for business, open for investment, open for trade. And that's why we have this different kind of recovery here in Ontario. But we view our opportunities with India as a blank canvas. This,
Yeah.
this is a beautiful time for us to paint that future picture together, Vikram.
I feel you'll find as we go ahead, a lot of Indian companies are getting more and more competitive and thinking about that much more than ever before. Prime Minister Modi with his Atma Nirbhar, which is self-reliant kind of movement, I don't think it's a block imports movement as some people say. It is actually a self-confidence building, get more confident to do things yourself. Because of COVID, we've learned to do a lot of things ourselves because of the lockdowns, which we did not. And we find that we can do it. It was starting with things like ventilators, PPE suits, and all that kind of stuff. It literally overnight, we started manufacturing a lot of this kind of equipment. So I think we're getting into a different mode in India on how the industry should look like, or how we should approach the market and what should be our cost structure. We're getting a lot of support from the government also in trying to reduce the cost structure as we go along. So I think it'll be a great place to invest. Also, if you're, I always keep saying this to people, if you're buying things from other countries, think of relocating to India as another destination to to invest and again buy stuff. So this is something we are promoting, but you will find India becoming a very competitive country as we go ahead. Not only automotive, but I think across the board.
Nadira, you don't mind if I piggyback on something that Vikram just said?
Please.
So we did something very similar here. When the pandemic first began, and in some cases we couldn't access ventilators or PPE, or in some cases, quite frankly, we were denied masks. Premier Ford stood up and said, never again will we in Ontario be beholden to someone else for the vital services that our frontline care workers need. And we began a website called Ontario Together. We had 28,000 suggestions come into that. We took 19,000 leads and bought about almost $900 million from that website of PPE. Then we expanded it to the Ontario Together Fund. We put $50 million in a fund to help companies pivot their factories, their facilities, to making the vital PPE. So if you had an injection molding company and you were making light fixtures, we would have assisted you to buy the molds to make the face shields, the headband for a face shield. And so we have now more than a dozen companies making millions of face shields. We invested in companies to make masks. We have, I won't say dozens, it's probably hundreds of mask makers now in Ontario, but 3M is building right at this moment a $70 million facility in Brockville to make the 3M N95 mask. We had companies like Canada Goose convert their facility from making big down jackets to making gowns for our frontline healthcare workers. And the list goes on and on. You know, Toyota jumped in, all the automakers jumped in. Linamar, one of the companies in India, Canadian company that's in India, made components for 10,000 ventilators. So this went on and on. So we have this program, and then the Premier suggested we expand it even further. Now let's not stop at PPE. Let's have an Ontario-made campaign. Let's start showcasing. And again, it's not, as you say, it's not at the expense of somebody else. It's an education program. When I go into a Home Hardware now, I see this big banner, Ontario made. I pick up their Beauty Tone paint, and right on their label is the Ontario made logo. And so it's an education campaign. So when you pick something up, you can turn it around and see, ah, yes, this one's made in Ontario. So we joined you in that.
That's incredible, Minister. Incredible to hear that. And I think that's a great pitch for international companies to come into Ontario. And Mr. Kirloskar, what would you have, anything else that you would like to add to this?
One comment, I can't resist this. One of the other big changes I saw during the start of the COVID and the way things were operating was the way the government worked. The government changed its working style so completely. We were having with various different chambers from India meetings on video with certain ministers who were directing like supply of essential items and making sure factories are running and things like that. And the speed at which they were able to untie knots in logistics. And if you hear the country a size of India, yes, we had issues of immigrant labor. They got sorted out. That's the only one which gave us bad publicity and people had serious problems, but they did get sorted out. But nowhere else did we ever have a shortage of any food, or even when we restarted production, logistics. And this was really the speed at which the government worked. I've never seen anything like that in India before, my last 40 years of working here. And the ability to make a change. So I think that's the most positive thing, why I feel so optimistic that this is a great place to live and do business in, and for the future as well. It's a tough country to work in. I know that people say there are a lot of difficulties, you get a lot of blocks, but there is a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of scope to make money as well. So I think I'll close with that. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, thank you, Mr. Kilroy. With such positive people on both sides, what else can we look forward to but a very, very positive year ahead? The fabulous opportunities in Ontario, and of course the opportunities in India, the requirements in India. I think that it is a win-win situation, and we need people like you. We look forward to working together with you to create even better opportunities and take this relationship forward. Minister, any closing remarks from your side?
Can I tell a quick story, Nadir, if I'm quick?
Please.
It was from our trip last year, when the potential in India for infrastructure and connectivity is so great. We learned that every single minute of every single day, 30 people move from rural India into urban centers in India. And that's 16 million people a year. And so in Canada, when I tell this story to try to show why we spend so much time with our friends in India, that would mean we would have to build a city the size of Ottawa, which is our nation's capital, every single month to be able to keep up with that. So that's to show the opportunities, the wonderful opportunities, and why companies like Magna and Linamar, Brookfield, why they invest in India, and why companies like ICBC Bank and Tata invest back in Ontario. It's this mutual opportunity that we share.
Exactly. I think that mutual opportunities, mutual benefits for all of us over here. Thank you very much for your time, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Kirloskar. It was a pleasure having you both here. And as I said, we do look forward to working together, because there's a lot to look forward to, and we will do it together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister.
And now we are immensely proud to bring to you a very special message from Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. I met him personally in Delhi in 2018. His commitment to the India-Canada relationship remains as strong as ever. Unfortunately, he could not join us live today, but has been gracious enough to record his personal greetings and acknowledging ICBC's contributing role in increasing bilateral trade between Canada and India. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm absolutely honored to present to you the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Justin Trudeau.
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous, and welcome to the ICBC Annual National Convention. For the past decade, the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber has been dedicated to promoting a strong trading relationship between Canada and India. Your work has contributed to increased bilateral trade between our two countries, and by bringing us all together today, you're helping further new opportunities for our businesses and our people. And right now, it's important that we stay connected and share ideas, because growing investments and furthering connections for our businesses is more important now than ever before. La pandémie mondiale de COVID-19 a eu de grandes répercussions ici au Canada et ailleurs dans le monde. Beaucoup de gens ont du mal à payer leurs factures ou à garder leur commerce ouvert. Et en participant à un événement comme celui-ci, vous aidez à offrir de nouvelles opportunités à nos entreprises pendant cette période d'incertitude. My friends, India is an important trading partner for Canada. We have a strong and vibrant relationship that is built on deep people-to-people ties. And the cooperation between our two countries grows our economies and creates jobs for our people. As we rebuild from the pandemic, our continued economic partnership will be important to getting people back to work and to creating more strong businesses across Canada and India. So thank you for being here today. Together, we will build back better and create a fairer and more competitive economy for everyone. Soyez prudents et prenez bien soin de vous. Encore une fois, merci.
That was indeed an inspiring message. Thank you, Prime Minister, for motivating us as we carry on our efforts of strengthening the relationship and economic partnership between India and Canada. More important now than ever before, as the Prime Minister has just said. We look forward to welcoming the Prime Minister in person at a time when conditions permit. And now for the launch of the LeaderSpeak series in partnership with Air Canada. We are very privileged to have Mr. Marc-André Blanchard, Executive Vice President and Head at CDPQ Global, and Dr. Swati Piramal, Vice Chairperson, Piramal. CDPQ and Piramal Group have a special connection, and we look forward to an interesting exchange during their fireside chat. Monsieur Blanchard, bienvenue ce soir. Je tiens à vous remercier pour votre temps. That was a special message for you. I learned it in French just to be able to welcome you personally. I welcome both of you and hand it over now to Dr. Piramal to take it from here.
Hello, Marc-André, and hello, everybody. When I was preparing for today's fireside chat, I began to think that what can a lowly doctor speak about the maestro of finance, who is Marc-André? But I have a hobby of collecting antiquarian books. And somehow I was leafing through them and I went back 500 years in time to talk to two sages of India. One, Tulsidas, who wrote about Ramayana and the perfect man. And the second was Kabir, a medieval poet. And they spoke at that time, 14th, 15th century, in dohas, 4 lines. 2 lines which explained a tattva, which is the example, and then the principle, and then 2 lines which explain the example. So very warm welcome, Mr. Blanchard. I'm going to use the dohas to talk to you about finance. So Tulsidas said, unique beggar, the chatak, it's a little bird, unique. Giver the cloud, so Tulsi thinks, the cloud fills all the waterways. A single drop, the chatak drinks. That's a poet's definition of development finance. It is like a rain cloud. It benefits the person at the bottom of the pyramid, and development finance puts more money into the hands of the consumer, increasing spending and increasing manufacturing and goods and services, which help grow the economy. As a member of WEF, a Development Finance Committee, if you could look into the future like a crystal ball, what do you see? Do you see institutional investors like CDPQ playing an important role in this development?
Well, I just want to thank you, Dr. Piramal, for actually accepting to host me in this way. And I'm thrilled to be having this dialogue with you. And just before we start, just allow me to say thank you to Nadira, who is the CEO of ICBC. And I want to say hats off to my colleague, Anita George, who is the president of ICBC. And I want to salute Minister Fedeli And my two former colleagues, I used to be an ambassador, and I have tremendous respect for these two very, like the 2-star ambassadors for each country, the High Commissioners, Bisaria, and the High Commissioner Patel. I just want to say that all my respect to both of you for the great work that you're doing for both the relationship between India and Canada. Because when I was at the UN, I thought that this relationship, I was very close to Ambassador Akbaruddin at the time. Your ambassador to the UN, when I was there, we were very close friends, and we actually, I think he was my best friend at the UN. I always thought that it was very important I thought it's key for both our future, at least from an egoistic point of view of Canada, I can tell you that it's very key for our future to have a close relationship with you, and we need more partnerships. And that's what I actually devoted a lot of my time in the UN doing that with India. But because we share a lot, and we share a lot also in the way we look at the world and what drives us. And development finance is one aspect of it. You know, when I was at the UN, I spent a lot of time thinking about it and working about how you can just better align, capital with just slightly better with sustainable development. And on this, I'm talking on my personal, really, I'm not talking from an institutional perspective, I'm talking from a personal perspective. And I believe in development, we need a shift. We need a shift. I mean, development finance comes a little bit from the part of international assistance. And for me, international assistance did a lot of good at the time when it was needed. It was all community-based, and it was focused also a lot on maybe a little bit too much on managing the problems in a good way, but not thinking about the scale needed to actually really solve the challenge we're facing. And now that we're facing, if you ask me, what are the two greatest risks that this planet is facing? It's inequality and it's climate change. For these two risks, you need massive build of infrastructure. That's the answer to these two risks. And we need to do it quickly and at scale, in a scale we've never seen before in the world. And that will need capital. And that's why, international assistance, while needed in extreme case and useful, is completely incomplete. International assistance in the world, it's $150 billion. According to the UN, we need $3,000 to $4,000 billion every year of investment in infrastructure to actually meet the expectations we have created with the SDGs and the climate change. So what we need to do now, and it's very interesting that you asked me the question, Dr. Piramal, because I think with Piramal Sarjival, you do a lot. Sarjival, you do a very good job at this, because this is and I'm looking forward to hear more about it, because I really believe that to solve the issues we're facing, we need to partners differently. There's a role for government, there's a role for philanthropy, there's a role for financial institutional investors like the one I'm representing, and there's a role for the pure private sector, there's a role for communities and all of that. But we need to do partnerships differently, and we need to be more innovative in this. And I don't know, because I've seen a video of you on what you're doing with water, and I was incredibly impressed. And I don't know if you share my view, and what kind, in this case, really, what triggered you to actually go, so far in the partnerships?
Thank you, Marc-Andre. So you really covered the development finance, the need for it. And while you mentioned United Nations, that you were there, but you have played, like Shakespeare said, many roles in life: a lawyer, a husband, a father, a leader, a business leader, a specialist in international affairs, a high-level participant in the United Nations, and now the head of CDPQ Global. So which one is your favorite? And where do you spend more time? And which one was the most fulfilling?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. I would say that there's a stage for everything in life. I think, the common thread with all of this, it's actually, and this is where I think if you if you think about it, one thing that is my mantra, and personally what I believe, what the common thing between the CEO and managing partner of a national law firm and being an ambassador of Canada at the UN, and now in my job at CDPQ, it's all about trust and relationship. And this is the key. We need, because I used to say to the lawyers working with me at my law firm and my partners, I used to say, what kind of business are we? And they were all saying, oh, we're in the business of giving legal opinions and all of that, and we're the best in Canada and blah blah blah. McCarthy Tétrault, it's a great firm. It's a great Canadian institution. It was a privilege to be chairing this firm, but I said, no, we're not. Yes, we may be giving legal opinion and making deals and all of that, but first and foremost, when we're in the relationship business, and because we need to build trust with our clients and the stakeholders and everything. Then I got to the UN. It's exactly the same thing. What is like in what's very key in diplomacy and to get to a better world and a better peace, which is these days quite tough. And what is the fundamental problem is we don't listen enough to the others. I mean, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the others, in front of the people in front of us, to actually and that's building trust in a relationship. And it's the same thing in finance and in business. Yes, of course, there are numbers and that we need to obviously look at it. And at La Caisse de Dépôt in CDPQ, we're really strong in this, and you look at it and you really assess, the risk and you do it in a very rigorous manner and all of that. But also at the end of the day, a big part of the risk is non-financial in any investments, in any partnership. And at the end of the day, what makes those partnership works, it's a lot about the trust that we have. Just think about the trust that my own institution, like CDPQ Global, has with the Pyramid Group. That we were able to build with the Pyramid Group a multi-platform investments that actually on multi-sectorial investments from our case, many asset classes, and enter into a partnership. But it's built on trust, and it's built on getting to know each other, and learning through success, and learning sometimes, by solving problems. And it's the same thing in the 3 careers that I've had. I actually believe this is the common thread, and this is what I actually what fascinates me the most about still going on. And actually, I enjoy my new role. Why? Because it's a logical pursuit of what I've been doing before. Because at the UN, when I arrived at the UN, Dr. Piramel, the Secretary General said to me, the first meeting, I said, because Prime Minister Trudeau had just been elected, and he said to the world, we're Canada and we're here to help. So I said to the Secretary General, listen, I'm Canada and I'm here to help you. How can I help you? And Secretary General at the time, it was Ban Ki-moon, said to me, Marc-André, you come from the private sector. Not many come from the private sector at the UN. And we have a big challenge in front of us. We just signed the Paris Accord and on fighting climate change. We need to find $100 billion a year to actually meet some of the challenges that and some of the targets we've set. And we also just signed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and that will need a massive investments of $7 trillion a year in total to actually meet. And so we need, and that's when I got the sense that international assistance, which is the total of it with all of the donor countries in the world, it's 150 billion. You need up to $7 trillion. There's a gap. That gap can only be met by private sector investments. This is how we're going to get to from 150 billions to $7,000 billion of investment, better aligned with sustainable development. But then, if we want to do that, we need to work differently. So I argued a lot that case from a UN perspective. And then when my CEO came and called me to see if I was interested to come and lead CDPQ Global with Anita George, I actually said, this would be a very good thing, because now that I could be on the side of the institutional investor, there's a lot of money that the world has allocated to institutional investors in many ways, close to $100 trillion are actually in the hands of institutional investors, and the institution I represent. So we have actually an obligation as an institution to put our capital to work and at work in a very constructive manner. We need to be part of the solution to solve some of the biggest challenges we face on this planet, not taking undue risk and not putting the money that we actually owe to the depositors and the people of Quebec, in our case at CDPQ, at risk, or we're not a charity organization either, but we need to think when we invest, what are the values we're pursuing? How are we doing this to actually try to help and be part of the solution? And I think that's very exciting at the moment.
So Kabir, the poet, said that values are like gold. They can be molded, but they harden to a fine sheen. If you have a pot, it is very fragile, but the gold urn is really very strong. So as our partner, we are so proud to be your partner in many asset classes in India, a listed equity in Pyramid Enterprises, a private equity in a JV in real estate, a corporate debt joint platform. I think this is a global example of how you said trust and relationship build that golden urn of values. And that's how I think it makes it successful. So I just want to touch upon one more aspect, which I think others have mentioned, is the COVID pandemic. The Tulsidas, the poet, said, when the flood waters rush in the Ganges, the stately trees get uprooted, swans flee and lotuses are washed away, but cranes remain and build again. So in the COVID pandemic, we've had an unprecedented crisis. How will we make those trees which are washed away, and how will we be still like the crane, sitting in the water and building again? What is your view in this?
Well, that's a great question. I think the obvious answer was given by Minister Fedeli and others earlier. I think it's about agility and innovation, and we have portfolio companies. In our case, the CDPQ Mondial, for example, we had one of our portfolio companies in France, that Bio Group, that actually never been in the PPE or in the testing business before. And it went from doing no testing in the spring of 2020 to now to be the leading private sector testing group in Europe or in France at the moment. So it will take innovation. It will take, I think we saw that the digitalization the platforms are taking a way bigger role, and the trends have been accelerated. But what will remain after, I actually believe that, so we need to do, we need to be agile, we need to innovate, we need to see partnerships differently. I would say that we also need to see risk differently. My message to everyone today is, we have to look at risk differently. We saw in the pandemic that there's a cost and there's a risk in not doing anything. All of the prevention stuff that is is so difficult to put in, whether you're a politician. I was part of active and policy making before, and we always used to this. It's so tough to sell prevention to the public and to the business sector, for example, and so we need to look at risk differently. We need to understand that also. There's a risk in not doing anything, but also that brings us to look at opportunities differently. That we need to spend more time thinking about in getting to know each other, and more time in getting to know markets more, because when we don't know a market, we tend to overestimate the risk and underestimate the opportunities. And the COVID-19 situation will force us to think a little bit more about that, because we're only as strong as the weaker link in our society, in the world, and at the weakest link in the world. So we need to all work together in improving and ensuring that actually we are getting stronger, but together, all of the world. And that's going to be a big thing. And then to be very concrete for businesses, I actually believe personally that what will come out of this pandemic is, we talk a lot about ESG, the environment, the social, and the governance values and La Caisse de Dépôt and Placement du Québec, the CDPQ, has been a leader in this. We have close to $350 billion in assets under management. We were the first one amongst the institutional investor to really have a strong environmental policy. In 2017, we set ourselves with very strong goals. And I'll give you one example. All of our compensation at the CDPQ there's a clear link correlation with how we're doing in reducing the carbon footprint of our investments. How are we doing to actually investing in low carbon emission companies? How are we better at transitioning some of our portfolio companies? So this is a very serious business for us, and we've made a lot of progress, and we led the way. So it's important for us in the pandemic to continue to lead the way with values, to make sure that we develop partnerships that are reinforcing and pushing forward these values. And I think, I've talked about the E, the environment, that part of ESG, and governance is another part that we are very strong. But there's the S. I think what will come out of the pandemic is businesses and institutional investors and everyone around the world will need to think very hard about what does the S mean? What does the social component mean? And I think it is what it means. For me personally, it's something that has to do with a more inclusive society. The role of private capital needs to be making sure that it's better aligned to create more inclusivity in our society. And one good example of that at La Caisse recently that I'm so proud of, you've all been following Black Lives Matter in the United States. Well, in Canada, we're not immune with the issues of racism and those issues in relation to Black Lives Matters. And we decided to it was an initiative by our employees to create a fund of $250 million that we call it 25-3. And you need 25% for us to invest in that company. The board needs to be diversified, at least 25% diverse. The shareholders needs to be at least 25% diverse, and the management as well. The 3 levels of leadership of businesses need to be diverse. And it's a small thing in a way, but that just gives you the kind of values and things we will need to do in the future to actually, as we come out of COVID-19, to build back better. As the Secretary General of the United Nations says, we need to build back better, because the world we had pre-COVID was a world where there was too much inequalities. There was a world that was actually on the brink of unsustainability from a climate change perspective. So we need to actually take us, on another course. And I think, as we need to use this crisis in a way, and it's to actually make that shift. And I think it's exciting because in a partnership between India and Canada, for example, in India, you've done so much, for example, with renewable. The leadership of your government on renewable has been so tremendous. You're ahead of some of your commitments on the Paris Accord. So we can learn a lot from that in Canada. And us, CDPQ, we're the 3rd largest player in infrastructure in the world. We're the first player, the biggest player in renewable amongst the institutional players in the world. So there's a lot of partnership that can be pursued and can be done that way, based on this new kind of building back better. And I'm very optimistic for the future of humanity on that aspect.
Yeah, so as Kabir said, the opportunity is now and not tomorrow. We must grasp this opportunity because it will never come again. We'll never get this chance. But you also said something about peace. And I know that you are you have onerous responsibilities as a man of peace to take on peace initiatives in faraway places like Haiti or Afghanistan, it requires a special mindset. We have all difficulty managing conflicts even at home. But so how does it feel to enlarge that horizon? Please give us some ideas or formulas of how you have effected that peacefulness.
Well, Dr. Piramal, you can also teach us a lot about this. I think your entire life has been devoted to that in some ways, with all of everything you've been doing, you know, whether it's in health or at the community level or in relation to academia, and you've touched all levels. And I'm not saying that to be just nice to you. I think it's important that we play on all of these levels, all of us. I think, you know, the number 2 of the UN, and the Deputy Secretary General of the UN when I arrived, and he was a Swedish guy, a very good guy, and a very wise man. And I said, you know, how does it work, this issue? I asked him the same question. And he says, Marc-André, you know, you have to look at peace like a stool with 3 legs, you know? And there's a leg of that is development. There's another leg of that that is, governance, and there's another leg of that is and human rights. So development, human rights, and security. And you need to work on the 3 legs at the same time. If you only work on security, it won't work. You need development and governance. If you only work on governance, but you have no security and no development, it doesn't work either. So we all need to get together, to work together, and on the 3 legs at the same times. And to get there, I think for too long, particularly in a country like the one I come from, I think it's probably different for India, but because of different history. But and I find that in a country like Canada, for a long time, we thought that peace was, and in the private sector, and the ones who are controlling capital for a long time thought that peace was a thing for the states, the governments, to actually deal with. Climate change was something for the government as well. I can tell you, if I think now it's changing. I actually believe that no, it is, yes, we need the leadership of governments. We need good governments. We saw it throughout COVID-19, how important having good governments is. But also, you know, the problems that the planets are facing are so different, so big, so hairy, so that actually we've decided in a democracy like India and Canada to put in the hands of business, of the private sector, the capital resources, most of them. So we need to have those, and those resources are necessary as a part of peace and a sustainable future. And this is why there's a role. This is why, for me, I think coming out of COVID, this part of a better alignment of capital with sustainable development is so key and necessary.
Thank you. So just a personal question. My friend Shikhar Ghosh is a professor at Harvard Business School. If you had to change places with another human being, he asks his students, who would it be? It must include everything. A person who has fame, wealth, fortune, family. Who would you like to exchange places with?
I never thought about this one. I don't, it's bizarre. I think there are people that I really, for whom I have immense respect in history. For example, probably Nelson Mandela is for me someone that I wouldn't, you know, I think he had so much suffering that I think I'm too egoist to think that I would have to go through such suffering as he did. I don't think I would, but I think he was so generous. For me, the importance in life, I feel bad, you know, having this discussion with you that has been, I feel like a slacker compared to you, Dr. Piramal, that you've done so many things. I've been lucky, you know, but what I've been trying to do is generosity. And for me, like a person like Nelson Mandela, I haven't been able to, to get out of, go through prison, get out of prison, and to argue and fight so much for diversity and an inclusive society like he did. I think to me, it's a very but it doesn't answer your question, but it gives you a little bit of colors of where I stand on these things. I think someone who succeeds in life is someone who is generous and someone who makes a difference. I actually believe that I'm just a dwarf, really, and I feel that I've done not much actually to help. I'm trying my best, but discussions like that actually inspire me. I was thinking about that this morning when I read your bio. I said, well, I'm a slacker, so I need to do more. But I think it's by inspiring each other all the time that actually we get to a better place. And we need to, that's why the dialogue is so important. That's why this kind of forum is so important, to make sure that ideas are put on the table, that people think about that actually people react, disagree, debate, and go and do some things with their views of the world. And so that's where I'm coming from.
So here, my granddaughter, she is a very active sports girl, and she cycled 20 kilometers. And I said, my genes are, sedentary. They don't like sports. But you take part in so many sports with your sons. And what do you love about them? Some water sports, or do you like water sports or skiing? How do you think about it as a family activity?
Well, Dr. Pirimala, I must say, if my kids were listening, so they would say, listen, so the extent of my sport is, it's actually, the best part for me, because I'm like you, I'm not a sports person, except that I love water. Anything that is on the water, like I can do anything on water and that thrills me. And some people are more mountainous, I'm more of a water person. But you know what I like the most about the water and my family is, when I'm with my two sons and my wife and their friends, and I can spend hours and hours and hours and hours driving the boat just to have them do some water skiing and prepare them to go kayaking and sailing and all of the things that you do on water. And to me, but why do I like it so much? It's because you're together, and you're enjoying life and sharing experiments. And actually, for my kids, it makes them so happy that actually it makes me very happy. But I do my sports through them rather than to me, unfortunately. And COVID has been even a very bad companion for my physical shape. So I need to do something.
Yeah, I was thinking about something that both of us share, our love for secret recipes and going to trattorias and finding recipes. Every good Indian family has their own secret recipe and they love it. My daughter's wedding, actually, we bought a ton of Oka cheese from Montreal. We had a joint venture at that time. And on the palace grounds of the Rambagh Palace, we had an Oka cheese fondue. It was a secret that I found in Canada, and then brought it to Rajasthan, and we had this royal wedding, but with the fondue from Canada. So what recipes do you like? And have you tried Indian food? Do you have a secret recipe or a bistro or a trattoria that you'd like to share?
So you have to know that my wife and I travel the world, and unfortunately, we have never been to India, and we're gonna go and see. We've made many friends at the UN, and Ambassador Akbaruddin is one of them. We promised we would go and visit, and I'll go in because we have more than $5 billion of assets deployed in India, and I'll go to India for sure as soon as we can. But believe it or not, my wife and I travel all around in Europe and in the US and other places. And it's actually in the pursuit of the best Indian restaurant. It's always on the list. My wife is the most devoted to Indian food in India, partially Indian restaurants. We don't cook it as much because we feel that we're not as good to cook this because we want to actually learn. So that's going to be one thing we're going to do when we go to India. But so I can talk to you about many of the restaurants around the world that are serving Indian food and can rank them. And one of our favorite is in Washington D.C. and the other one is in London. And I was raised on Oka cheese myself, so I'm a big fan of Canadian cheese. And Oka was really a small town nearby where my family comes from, outside of Montreal. And for me, I cook, and what I do like to cook are either plats mijotés, like the French do, like bœuf bourguignon, because I think it's happy, or mixed grill, where you share and you have everybody around and everybody finds something they like because it's diverse, and actually everybody makes happy. So I do the best French fries at my cottage with home French fries with actually the best mixed grill and the best meat that I find around with local producers and stuff. And I also do a good bœuf bourguignon. Maybe not as good as Julia Child used to do, but like pretty close by, because it's a family tradition. In my family, my mother and second mother, they used to do the Julia Child version. And of course, in the next generation, I had to tweak it a little bit because I thought I could do better. But I think the jury is still up, and my kids would say they would favor their grandmother's version rather than mine. But it's pretty good.
Oh, thank you. And we look forward to warmly welcoming you to India and come and see some of the work we're doing in Sarvajal, water security and health and education in our CSR efforts. So before we end, I want to ask you a rapid fire question. You're only allowed to choose one. You can't choose both. Okay, so you have to answer very quickly. United Nations or World Economic Forum?
United Nations. It's the only place in the world where the world meets. It's the most inclusive forum. And this is why the United Nations is so key for our future as a world.
Water sports or snow sports?
Water sports.
Canadian cheese or French cheese?
Canadian cheese. I mean, the French would laugh at me. I tell you, come to Quebec and to Canada and we'll get you the best cheese. And as you did, Oka cheese is fantastic. We have the best cheese that like the Oka, which is semi-soft, and we have the best cheddar in the world, and I believe, and we have very good triple cream that rivals any of the cheese that you would find in France.
India or China?
India. I'm a big fan of India. It's the largest democracy in the world. For me, compared to China, I actually have I really believe that India is a key.
Mr. Trump or Mr. Biden?
Well, I must say it's not. We are apolitical in my organization. I'll cheat a little bit. I'll say that President Biden, I prefer personally. I'm not talking on behalf of my organization, and I would say that I'm part of the ones who think that boring is the new cool.
Mr. Boris Johnson or Vladimir Putin?
I would say Boris Johnson. The UK and Canada, we have a strong relationship, and we're best friends. And let's never forget what Russia did under the leadership of Mr. Putin to the world, to Ukraine and other places. I find that they're creating mess all around the planet, in Syria, for example, and killing people. And I just believe that this should be said more than it is being said at the moment. I think, of course, Mr. Johnson.
Narendra Modi or Angela Merkel?
Or then you'll allow me not to choose, because they're two great leaders and two phenomenal leaders, and I have tremendous respect for both of the leaders.
Okay, one exception.
And they're in the 21st century. They're among the two larger than life leaders we have in the world. So,
law or philanthropy?
I think law, because law allows for philanthropy to actually be performed. And so law is a precondition to a free market economy, to democracy. And I believe it's the rule of law is so key in our societies and key for our future. And that allows for philanthropy to thrive and the business sector to be able to do philanthropy.
Sugar or spice?
Well, I'm a Canadian, I'm a Quebecer. maple syrup, sugar.
Horton's Coffee or Starbucks?
Oh, then I lose my patriotic points there. I must say, one of my sons is a big fan of Tim Hortons, and we have this debate all the time. But I still have a weakness for Starbucks.
Okay. And so the last question, both were lawyers like you, both famous. Abraham Lincoln or Mahatma Gandhi?
Oh my God, I cannot choose between Quit India and the Gettysburg Address. I mean, nobody can choose, and nobody should choose that. They are two people who did so much for civil liberty. So I'll ask you for another exception there, because they're two giants of world history, and without them, I don't know where the world would have been.
You're my very good friend, so I will allow you that. I'd like to thank you very much for this wonderful delve into your business life, your perceptions, your vision, and also a little bit of personal life. And thank you for sharing it. That makes you a wonderful human being, which we'd love to have visit India. And we look forward to your trip soon.
And I thank you very much for the warm, and thank you very, very much. And really, namaste.
Oh. Thank you, Nadira.
Thank you, Dr. Piramal and Ambassador Blanchard, for a wonderful exchange between two beautiful minds. You give us hope that on the strength of partnerships, and as you said, trust and relationship, as we do share between the Piramal Group and CDPQ, we can further strengthen the bond between our two great democracies, Canada and India. Thank you very, very much to both of you for really an amazing session.
Thank you.
And I'm going to move on to actually announce a message and a special announcement from Honorable Minister Jeremy Harrison. Jeremy Harrison is Minister of Trade and Export Development of Saskatchewan. The Chamber had the privilege of having Minister Harrison at our 2019 Annual National Convention. And Minister Harrison, he also oversees the Ministry of Immigration and Career Training in Saskatchewan. He currently serves as chair of the Cabinet Committee on Government Operations and as a member of the Board of Internal Economy and the Caucus Committee on Human Services. The Chamber has been associated with the province actively in the last 2 years, and we very much look forward to work closely with the new office of the province in India, which is expected to open in 2021. Congratulations, Minister Jeremy Harrison.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here today. I would like to thank Nadira Hamid and the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber for the invitation to participate in today's exciting event. I'm pleased to be a part of today's event. Although it is happening virtually due to the global COVID-19 pandemic, it demonstrates our resolve to continue to forge ahead to build and strengthen relationships. And I was pleased to be here with you last year, physically in India on my first visit, an enjoyable one, and one where we were pleased to see our trade and investment efforts between India and Saskatchewan move forward. The relationship between Saskatchewan and India spans many decades and holds a lot of opportunity for the future. And I would again like to thank the Chamber for hosting this important convention. With its growing economy and population, Saskatchewan has the food, fuel, and fertilizer to help to continue to drive economic growth for both India and Saskatchewan. Last year, Saskatchewan exported more than $775 million to India, with $440 million in potash and $330 million in agri-food products, including being the largest supplier to India of lentils and peas. Saskatchewan looks forward to being a long-term supplier to India of agricultural products and potash, and we see many opportunities for further innovation and collaboration. With more than 40% of Canada's cultivated farmland at nearly 19 million hectares, an area equivalent to the size of Tamil Nadu and Punjab states combined, Saskatchewan is a global leader in agri-food production and is well positioned to help India meet its demand for food. Potash helps farmers in India improve yield and productivity of their crops. Our province is the world's largest producer, with about 30% of the global market. Saskatchewan has a proven record as a dependable and secure key supplier of agricultural products and potash, and we look forward to continue to grow these exports to India in the years ahead. Saskatchewan is also the world's second largest uranium producer, accounting for an estimated 13% of global uranium production in 2019, and we're pleased Saskatchewan uranium is part of India's electricity generation mix. Our province will help advance the clean electricity generation mix in India by being a long-term, stable supplier of uranium to the nuclear energy sector. At last year's event, right around the time we launched our exciting Saskatchewan Plan for Growth, our government announced it would be opening a trade and investment office in India. I'm pleased to inform you our plan for opening that office in 2021 is on track. We brought our managing director, Mr. Victor Lee, who will build a team in the office, which will be co-located in the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi. Victor comes from the government of Alberta's Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Innovation, with extensive trade and investment experience in the Asia-Pacific market. By having our officials on the ground in India and collaborating with our key partners, including Global Affairs Canada, we'll be able to focus on strengthening relationships with our Indian partners and customers to increase trade and attract further investment to the province. And that's a key reason why we're here, to highlight Saskatchewan as one of the best places to do business and one of the most attractive investment environments in the world. With competitive tax rates, certainty in its regulatory regime, and significant business incentives in place, Saskatchewan has seen a record $173 billion in new investment between 2009 and 2019. We welcome businesses in India to participate in the many exciting investment opportunities our province offers, including agri-values such as pea protein, canola crushing and flax processing, mining of diamonds, base and precious metals, and manufacturing such as agricultural farm implements and fertilizer. India and Saskatchewan have many common interests and goals, and we look forward to continuing to enhance our already strong relationship once our new international office opens. I appreciate the opportunity to attend today's event. Thank you very much.
That was a great message from Minister Harrison. And with that, we come to an end of today's program. Let me thank both the High Commissioners for having been here, for all the messages that we got from the Premier, from Premier Duckford, from the Prime Minister of Canada. Thank you to Dr. Piramal, to Mark Andre, to Vikram Kirloskar for having joined us. And thank you very much to Margaret and Arun, to Air Canada for the support to the Chamber. Thank you to Anita George for her leadership once again. And thank you to all my team for having been there and been at the back of all this and helping us organize this wonderful program. Thank you to my board of directors. And I would like to extend a special thank you to Andrew Smith, Minister Commercial in the High Commission of Canada, for being a source of great strength and support to the Chamber. Thank you very much, Andrew, for everything that you do. With that, we close the ICBC Annual National Convention 2020. Good night, stay safe, stay at home. What?